Welcome back, ladies and gents, for another jam-packed daily market update with yours truly. As always, we've got a hell of a lot to get into. We're going to kick things off with what Larry Fink had to say yesterday on Bitcoin, but more broadly, the cryptocurrency industry. And it's kind of been like a hat trick over the past 3 days. A couple of days ago, we had the Bank of America, second largest bank within the United States, come out and say they are ready to embrace crypto for payments once regulators allow it. Just yesterday over at Davos, we heard from BNY Mellon CEO that essentially said, look, we not only are ready to embrace this technology, but we've been investing in it for years, which is rather interesting given what the SEC has been doing. Despite that, all the big players have been positioning themselves ready to capitalize on this. And that is the side of the smart money that we've tried to be on. Of course, we will be addressing the current price action. It's a little bit boring. People are getting a bit fed up. I noticed it in the comment section. But that's why you need to understand that bigger picture. And I think the best way to do that is through the lens of technical analysis, which we will be doing with you. We'll be looking at Bitcoin. I think probably more importantly, the total market caps, because they're doing exactly what I would like them to do, which is setting us up for big continuation and certainly breakouts into new all-time highs. Bitcoin included in the total market cap, so the total is already at all-time highs. It's just pulling back into where you broke out from, ready to spring off it. The total 2s, total 3, and others are still sort of doing what you would expect around an all-time high, and that is finding resistance, but that will ultimately set them up. Then we've got news about the XRP and SOL futures looking to be listed on the CME. We are going to get those ETFs. There's 33 ETFs now filed for the SEC. Some of them have got the clocks ticking. We'll talk about CoinShares' report because we didn't cover it on Wednesday. And then we'll dive into a load of price action. So we've got a lot to get into, guys. If you're not already a subscriber, do become one. You're missing out on being a subscriber to one of the fastest growing crypto YouTube channels that there are on the whole of the web. And I want to thank you all for helping us out on that journey. So let's dive into, we've got 2 clips. Clip number 1, which is Larry Fink talking about a $700,000 Bitcoin and more broadly about why he likes Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and dive into that.
Internationally based, if you're frightened of your debasement of your currency, or you're frightened of your economic or political stability of your country, you could have an internationally based instrument called Bitcoin that will overcome those local fears. And so I'm a big believer in the utilization of that as an instrument. And so if that becomes true, and you see that it could be a proper hedge against maybe hope security or equities. Yeah. The question is, could you see a 2 or 5% allocation? I was with a sovereign wealth fund during this week, and that was the conversation. Should we have a 2% allocation? Should we have a 5% allocation? If everybody adopted that conversation, but it would be 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 per Bitcoin.
But does it also?
I'm not promoting it, by the way. So that is not my promotion. Or
he very much had to get himself out of a bit of a hole there, didn't he? But this is a serious conversation. The world still hasn't allocated to Bitcoin yet. We've seen some. We live in a very much an echo chamber here in the crypto space. But actually talking about Bitcoin there specifically, and that use case, Bitcoin is still the tide that rises and sinks all ships. In fact, I think if we see that, you'll actually see Bitcoin dominance roll, because I do think Bitcoin dominance has got this broader trajectory to the downside. Did a great video yesterday with my Patreons where we looked at the Dixie. The Dixie and a potential scenario for that following what happened with Trump last time. Julian Bittle's a great guy to follow. I think his scenario is one that we're going to see playing out. We're also looking technically and watching for that scenario. That's going to be a great backdrop that sees all of these macro cycles come to fruition, the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and really supports the altcoin sector broadly in a similar fashion to what you had in obviously 2017, which seems like a lifetime ago. But that is absolutely huge. There's a second clip I want to play for you before we dive into everything else. So let's just get straight into that.
But crypto is going to play a big role. Digitization of currency, digitization of everything we're doing. I'm a big believer, and this is one thing that will change Bloomberg even. I believe we're going to be in the cutting edge of tokenizing bonds and stocks.
Coming.
And we have the technology now. The fact that we are now moving forward in tokenization, every bond and stock, is crazy. Yeah. We should be moving towards that frontier. Obviously, there's winners and losers and all that, but we need to be prepared for the tokenization. And it would democratize more finance if we tokenized bonds and stocks.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's talking about crypto more broadly there. He's not just a Bitcoin guy. He believes in the utility. And there's a utility cycle that we are yet to even experience because it's been hindered by the SEC deliberately. Whilst they've kind of kept everybody's eyes on Bitcoin, they've hindered the rest of the industry, even though the rest of the industry I actually think is going to be more impactful than Bitcoin just as a store of value. Bitcoin's just a store of value. Yes, that can protect you, like Larry Fink says, about against inflation and your own sort of native economic situation or country situation. But there's a fundamental revolution. If you look how impactful the internet is, the same thing is going to happen for value that the internet did with information. And it's very, very exciting, all of this. I had a conversation with a bank this morning and I just said, you guys are so outdated. And they laughed. And these people work for that bank. And that was a great conversation. And I think we all understand the kind of innovations that this technology brings. Certainly Larry Fink, the largest asset manager in the world, does. You're going to see public ledgers, distributed public ledgers, actually facilitate the trillions of dollars that are going to enter this market. This is from the New York Stock Exchange global head of listing, predicts more cryptocurrency companies will go public. We'll be looking at those for opportunities. Coinbase was one that we own. We own a number of stocks out there you can unlock when you become a Patreon. With an increase in up-and-coming IPOs. Ripple as a company is going to be one of the biggest IPOs ever. I can't wait to get that. Hopefully I can get that cheap. Talking about Ripple and certainly XRP. This is from James Seyfarth. Assuming beta.cme group is actually a beta test version of the actual CME website. Looks like CME is expected to launch Solana and XRP futures on February the 10th. But this isn't available on their actual website. Honestly, makes sense and largely to be expected, in my opinion, if true. This, of course, is it. Remember, there are 33. Very Masonic number, that. Remember, Jesus died at 33, and you also have 33 vertebras. Very special number. And take from that what you will. But there are, and actually, I'm not saying anything here. It's just a coincidence. I think there's 33 ETFs. But there's a hell of a lot of ETFs to come. This is going to unlock billions of dollars that's going to flow into this space. We didn't on Monday cover what we usually like to do, which is CoinShares report on flows. Trump euphoria prompts 2.2 billion with total AUM at all-time highs. And you can see where this flowed into. The quick takes are digital asset investment products saw inflows of 2.2 billion last week amid the Trump inauguration euphoria, the largest week of inflows so far this year. Remember, it's only January. Bitcoin saw 1.9 of those, bringing year-to-date flows to 2.7 billion. Unusually, despite the recent price rise, we have seen minor outflows from short positions. Interesting. XRP saw further 31 million inflows last week, bringing its total flows since mid-November 2024 to an astonishing 484 million. So XRP is doing sensationally. It's actually now overtaken, or it hasn't quite overtaken, Solana. These are two that are likely going to be in the running for ETFs. There was also minor inflows in Stellar, but little other altcoin activity. So very interesting. Also, we're all frustrated with the price, aren't we? We had this, it's always a lot more hype going into these things than it happens. There's been no executive orders, et cetera. That's all still to come. That's fundamentally what's going to see this push higher. And when we look at the total market cap, this is just doing what you'd expect. After you take a key level of significance, a very obvious resistance level or key level of significance, you'll often flip that prior all-time high resistance as support. You'll hold it, setting up for that continuation. Remember, we've got all these targets. I think more interesting to me when we look at the total too, it's doing exactly what you'd expect. Pulling back at all-time highs, setting up for continuation. Like we can show you hundreds of examples of other charts that did the exact same thing and went on higher. Same story with the total cryptocurrency market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, so total 3. And if I dive over to my meeting, I can pull up others. Very similar thing, but this is going to push on higher. We have a bright future ahead of us. Of course, we've got technical targets that align with this. And then we can look at ETPs, et cetera, et cetera. The space is in a great position. You need to focus on that bigger picture and not get suckered into the day-to-day ding-dong-along influencer basically farming you for your attention, because that's the world that we now live in, unfortunately, guys. Short-term price action. Focus on that bigger picture. Focus on the things that are happening here fundamentally, and focus on the charts on a big time frame, where they're at, where they're going. When you look across the entire crypto sector, internally. So we're talking about Bitcoin, others, altcoins, they look spectacular. When you look also at external kind of derivatives, perhaps in the crypto space, whether that's crypto companies, they're not really derivatives, but in some sense, I guess they are. They also look great. When you look at miners, when you look at ETPs, when you look at companies that have anything to do with crypto, they all look fantastic. And that's generally going to be overlaid on a or supportive of what Julian Bittle perhaps is looking at with his Dixie scenario, which I think, there's a number of other reasons that he hasn't gone into that I think that's likely to play out. So that's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you as always. Thanks a lot, everybody, for showing up and watching and supporting. We really do appreciate it. We'll keep you up to date on a daily basis with all the latest and greatest things happening within the past 24 hours on these market updates. I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.